Luke, we're here in Burbank. You're no longer homeless.
Not at all.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I never thought it would happen. I really didn't. I can't believe it happened to us. You know?
I'm so glad it did. And for people that don't know your first video, and I'll link to it below, we met downtown LA and you gave one of the most honest and candid interviews about homelessness in Los Angeles in Skid Row. Just unbelievable. Then we lost track of each other. And I found you, like I looked for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. People told me you were dead. People, I mean, all kinds of years later. I finally find you, and then criminalization. I think you said I got you a tent, and then you got in a hotel, and then you went into the tiny homes for 3.5. I want to say effing years, but I'll let you tell all that. So because this is your story. So first, you're in housing.
Yes.
And when I pulled up, you were telling me how housing changed your life.
Yeah. I didn't realize how important it was because, like, I'm someone who didn't believe in housing first, even though I was homeless. But it wasn't until I got housing that I could start, like, seeing a better way at all, even at all. Yeah. And, like, today, like, I'm clean. I go to church every day. Like,
yeah, you were telling me you're going to church.
We're so happy, it's unreal. I didn't know it was possible. I really didn't.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't happen if I was still out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And honestly, the only way to do it is housing first. You know, nothing else works. The only problem is not everybody's ready for houses right now. You know, me and my wife were, but it took 3.5 years in tiny homes and hotel for us to start to learn how to live like a human being again.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I disagree because if you're in the right housing that has support, that, you know what I mean? You just can't put somebody that's lived in a town, like how long were you homeless?
15 years.
Yeah, you can't put somebody that's lived on the streets for 15 years into a box.
Yeah.
But if they're in a facility or a housing unit that has staff where they can get treatment and mental health support, you know, and living skills, then it works.
Without a doubt. But see, that's the thing, they weren't doing that at first.
Right.
They were just worried about getting people into housing. And like when we first got here, like our neighbors, they stabbed each other. They weren't ready for housing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I hope that they're doing it now a little bit more, but what was happening, the truth about what was happening was when we went to the tiny homes, there's a form you fill out. It's a classification form to decide what priority level you get housing, okay? And then it also, well, what happened with that was the counselors figured out ways. It also determines what kind of supportive housing you'll need.
Right.
Counselors figured out how to manipulate the system. We were in a tiny homes in Highland Park, and they got people to score scores that were not their actual scores to get them to get housing now. Right now.
Because the problem is the lack of housing.
Yes. And you had people that weren't ready for that kind of housing put there, and like we saw, weren't ready for it.
Well, what you were saying earlier too, and it was a period of time here in Los Angeles. There's such pressure, right?
Yes.
To get people into housing that it was just let's shove them in, shove them in. It was housing only, so they can get the numbers up instead of providing support.
Yeah. Well, the World Cup's here. So they don't want to look like assholes on the world stage.
Right.
You know, and I don't blame them, but if we didn't have the Olympics coming next, I hate to say it, but I really truly believe that everything would go back to normal. And I really believe that after the Olympics, I'm so grateful I got housing now, because I believe after the Olympics, it's going to go right back to they don't care about us again.
Well, let's talk about the tiny homes, because people, they're supposed to be temporary, and I believe people have good intentions, but there's no housing to move people to.
No.
Like, you're supposed to be there 6 months, and you're there 3.5 years, and, you know, oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah, and
so what were they like? Be honest.
They were good in the beginning, but then it fell apart because they were hiring people fresh out of prison and stuff, and people were there were donations coming in, and they were stealing them. And like, I'm in this beautiful house right now, but this isn't my house. This is my wife's house. Okay. The reason why that is because I spent 3.5 years in tiny homes, and I couldn't get my birth certificate because every time we fill out the forms and they wrote them a $40 money order, the people that were in charge of it would cash it and then never take me to get my birth certificate. So I'm in this beautiful house, but because of that, I wouldn't have got housing. And I've seen that happen to people who didn't have a wife that it worked out for them. You know what I mean? And it just, between that and then lying on them forms to get you classified wrong, they were really dropping the ball and trying to help people. And like a couple months ago, I seen people got kicked out of here who didn't do nothing wrong because money fell apart because of stuff like that. You know? And it's just really sad because a lot of us really need, want, and deserve housing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm clean today.
Well, you have to fix the broken system. And you're saying you're clean today because of housing.
They gave me a house. And if it wasn't for the house, that would not be.
And I've known you for a while.
Yeah.
And we've stayed in contact via text, and we've met a couple of times before you went into the tiny homes. You were using drugs for how long?
Oh, I've been using drugs since I was 14, 15 years old.
And you were
a hardcore heroin addict.
Right, you were serious. Both
I don't play around.
You're like me. I did everything to the extreme.
Well, I'm a hope to die drug addict.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what I did. You know what I mean?
And so how many times have you gone into treatment?
Here, none, except for...
Well, housing was the treatment. But over since, you know... Since
I don't know how my whole life?
I've
been in treatment probably 30, 40 times in my life.
30, 40 times. I actually believe it.
Yes.
And what happens is you probably stay sober for a week or 2 weeks or how long it is.
Or until the court tells me I have to be sober, because when the court stops telling me and I have to stop showing up the piss test, then I'm going to use.
Right. You're counting the days if it's court appointed.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because people use drugs to escape pain. And, you know, you're also physically and emotionally dependent to drugs after a certain amount of time. But after treatment is over, you're exited back to homelessness, and it's not easy to stay homeless. And I recommend everybody watch your first video, which I will link to below, because I remember you're saying, you know, Skid Row has hurt me in ways that I can't even imagine. I forgot exactly what you said, but I felt your pain.
Well, the thing about that is like all that sharpened me, though. You know, all that suffering, all that BS, like, it made us who we are, me and her especially. You know, like, you could take everything I own from me right now, everything in this house, everything. In half an hour, I'm going to be fine. You know why? Because they've done that to me so many times. How many times I've lost everything I own? Whole cats, whole everything. More times than I can count in both my hands and feet.
You're a survivor.
So there's a benefit to come out of that. You know what I mean? Like, we're rock hard, especially with each other. Like, we came here together. We survived here together. So, like, you survive here with someone like that, and there's nothing that'll break you. You know, nothing can, you know?
Well, and we don't make it easy for people to get out of homelessness.
No, of course not.
I mean, you know, the path was the hotel. I don't know what hotel you got into, but it was like during COVID, right?
Yeah.
So
The LA Grand, yeah.
Oh, so you're in the LA Grand
Yeah.
with a lot of other people. That probably wasn't the greatest.
No. I watch people get kicked out of there for security guards not liking them.
Right.
You know what I mean? They didn't do nothing wrong.
Right.
You know, you got people that are drug addicts and stuff. They didn't even try to accommodate our addictions at all. They never once was offered rehab.
I think so. What happened is, what I believe
Yeah.
is, COVID hit.
Oh, yeah.
Went into crisis. They didn't know. I mean, it was.
Yeah, of course.
We got.
It's understandable.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's still. I'm not trying to make an excuse.
No,
but I'm just saying they didn't hire people and train them
Yes.
or hire the right people.
Right.
They just hired people quickly, and the result of that was a lot of abuse.
Yes. Well, if anybody out there's listening, anybody in charge of anything real, like, you need to make some notes at this stuff, because this is important. These are important things that somebody can stop.
Yeah.
Like people that are going to get housing, offer some rehab. Find out what they need to help support their step out of being homeless back into a house, because that's really hard.
Well, you bring up something so important, because I was going to ask, because you and your wife, you're hardcore.
Oh, what would I
You're a
do?
hardcore addict, hardcore
yes.
survivalist,
Oh, yeah.
right? You're not giving up, but you're also, doing the streets the best that you can.
Yes.
But something changed that you went into the hotel. What changed?
What changed?
We were tired.
I was tired. Yeah. I was out there I lived under a bridge for 15 years. Like, I swear to you, I didn't shower for 15 years.
Oh my God.
It's not an exaggeration. I didn't look for it, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, you showered a couple times.
No.
Oh, man.
I'm not.
I got a good nose, brother. I've seen you a bunch of times.
Bird bath, but there's nowhere to get a shower.
Right.
downtown.
Shower in a
And
bag, right?
They only started bringing them mobile showers around the last couple of years. When we
Right.
first got it, they didn't have none
Right.
of that.
And people don't understand what
You
it's
to go
like.
stay down to Missions and to get that, and that's all Skid Row. And once you get out of there, you don't ever go back there, because it will hold you. You get stuck there.
Yeah.
That is the worst trap ever.
Yeah.
I spent 4 years trapped in there, like stuck in sinking sand.
Yeah.
Not doing nothing, just stagnating.
Yeah.
Digging a hole deeper.
And so your advice to the homelessness sector or politicians is to listen to us.
Yeah, definitely. To make some notes about what people really need that are coming off of being homeless. Because you can't have someone who has never been homeless try to figure out what someone who is homeless is going to go through or experience, or even how they think or understand, because the world is different when you've been homeless.
Right.
When you're surviving, the world's different.
Yeah.
You
You don't trust anybody.
No, of course not. Well, you're surviving. You have to eat.
Well, you trusted me.
Yeah, you know how hard it is to find a bathroom in LA? You know how hard it is to find food if you ain't got no money? People don't care.
Well, you were even talking about how, in your first, how gangs, and people don't know this, that gangs tax you.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't pay whatever that is, that they assign for you, they burn your tent.
Yeah. Well, they'll make up reasons. They'll
With you in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. It's LA, though. LA's the Wild West.
Well,
It
there's
really
other
is.
areas.
Yeah, but it really is, though. It can be rough here.
Yeah. I remember I was working with homeless people in Columbus, Ohio in the winter, freezing cold. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how can you live outside in the snow? And they were like, how did you live in Los Angeles? It's so scandalous.
Yeah.
And there's no perfect or good place to be homeless.
No, of course not. No,
Yeah.
of course not.
What would you want people to know about homelessness?
That I'm exactly like you. That there's no difference between us. And I said this before in my last video, that it's not much that keeps you from being where I've been. 2 paychecks. I know 80% of the people I meet and C are 2 missed paychecks away from being right where I was and have no idea what to do when they get there. You know, and I hope to God they don't go there. And it's sad that we live in an environment like that, you know? And I don't know, it felt like when we were going to all these programs, these tiny homes and all that, it felt like they just shuffled us along and nobody asked us, nobody ever asked us once how we felt, did this matter, did what we wanted, none of that.
Right.
You know, like we were still not even people, you know, which you get used to that though. You know, you get used to people. You know, times I can ask somebody what time it is and they ignore me.
Right.
What time is it? Depending on how I look. If I look homeless, really homeless, like I'm dirty, they ain't answering me. You know, I'll ask what time it is.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, I don't have no money. What time is it? I ain't got no money. You know? I didn't listen to you. You know? I don't know.
But the thing is that we were such hardcore addicts. Like,
Yeah.
if we can make it, like, anybody can
Well,
make it.
no, that, you know, what your wife is saying behind me, I so agree with. And I would, you know, because last time we met in person was under the 8th Street Bridge.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I took a photo, you allowed me to take a photo, and you looked worse than when I met you the first time, right?
Yeah.
Because it was more years on the street.
Yeah. very
But
much
you
so.
look so good.
Yeah.
I mean, you look so
I feel
good.
great.
Right?
I get up and I go to church every day at 7 a.m.
That is amazing.
I have learned all the prayers in the Catholic Church, everything. I'm going to be baptized in there very soon in September. You know, only because they gave me this house.
Yeah, so, right. And so when you're on the streets, you and your wife, and it's amazing that you two stuck together.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to do a couple interviews soon.
Doubt.
We're doing the Luke update, and then we'll
Right.
do, because nobody's been introduced to
Yeah,
Chloe
right,
yet.
exactly,
We'll
right.
get her. Because you had to go through this hotel madness and tiny home madness. If somebody came to you and said, look, we can give you, it's not the Taj Mahal, it's not the greatest, but it's your own space. You can lock the door, you'll have a shower, you'll have a bathroom, you can cook food, you can refrigerate it, and we'll help you get sober if that's what you want.
Yeah.
Would you have jumped on it?
Yeah. I might not have took the sober stuff up right away. You don't start to see or have that hope until you get to where you don't have to worry about your next meal, your next this, your next that, where you can let your guard down for a minute.
Yeah.
You can't work on anything real about yourself until you can let your guard down. And that's really hard to do in LA, and it definitely is going to happen while you're homeless.
Yeah.
You know?
And that is why you said you support housing first now.
Yes, without doubt.
Because what you said is once you get inside, get used to the new environment, get used to dignity, start healing a little bit. You were outside for far too long doing all kinds of, I can't even imagine the life that oh my gosh.
I
And
wanted to stop peeing in bottles.
yeah, right. She just said, how long to stop peeing in bottles?
Yeah, it does. It really does. You don't have a bathroom for so
Right.
long, so yeah. That's what
But
you do.
once you get used to using
Yeah.
a toilet, using a shower, and then
yeah.
you're like, gosh, now I want to get sober.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the next progression.
Right.
You know, it's you have to start going. It's what's gonna come next. You know what I mean? We're people. We grow. We don't stagnate. We either grow negatively or we grow positively.
Yeah.
And you have to introduce something positive. You want people to grow positively.
Right.
You know, and they can't do it when they're living a life that's so just sham. You know, people ignoring you, people don't care about you, can't eat. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
It's really terrible. And what's really terrible is that we have all these giant apartments and big, rich, and people can't afford them. But you got people sleeping on the ground right in front of it.
And, now, what people don't understand is, they'll say, well, get a job, right?
Yeah.
But even
How do
now,
that?
right, eventually maybe you want to restabilize, maybe
yeah.
you want to go back to work,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but then somebody's got to hire you. And a lot of times, I know I'm 65, and nobody's going to hire me.
Right.
right? So there's this whole big thing about, is the person hireable? And you've got a past that could prevent you from, and
Right.
leaving you outside not only is crazy and inhumane,
Right.
it costs taxpayer money.
Yes.
I mean, how many
It
times
puts
were you-
everybody at risk.
Yeah, ooh,
You know?
right.
You know?
When you're homeless, it puts everybody at risk.
Honestly.
Can you explain that a little more?
Well, you think about it, when you're homeless, you're in situations that are stressful, that are sometimes life or death, that are sometimes food or no food, that are sometimes people taxing you, people thinking you did something you didn't do, people thinking you look like somebody, because it's LA, there's always somebody who looks like somebody else. And it's too much, It's just, I forgot where I was going. What was your question a second ago? Do you remember?
Yeah,
such a terrible memory.
it was, we're fine. These are raw, whatever on the top.
The real thing was, when we got in them tiny homes, like you were saying about having your own shower, it didn't matter. When I had a place, the tiny home, we lived in a hut that was smaller than a jail cell with 2 cots, and I loved every second of it.
Did you?
Yeah, we had our cat, me and her, we had a TV. We loved it. We could lock our door and they left us alone.
Yeah.
I didn't have a bathroom or a shower, I didn't care.
Right.
You know what I mean? We had our place.
Right.
I've lived there forever if that's what it took.
But it's like it's meant for lawnmowers, not humans.
Well, that's where they forced us, And honestly, I want to say this too. That's the choices we've made as well.
Right.
Because I'm never nowhere that I didn't make a choice to be.
Right. And I don't want to spin your.
Not at all.
You said
Not at all.
you loved every minute of it,
Yeah,
but
well-
for 3.5 years. So my whole thing is, I support the tiny homes if they're temporary.
Oh yeah.
If they're 6 months,
Yes.
9 months.
Yes.
But I know several people that have been there over 3 years, and I get it.
Yeah.
The people want to move you out. There's just no
Yeah.
housing.
Right. Well, the program was brand new then, so they didn't know what it was going to be. They just said 6 months from the gate.
Right.
They had no idea what it was really going to entail.
Right.
And when it became a bigger shenanigan,
So, what is life like now? What is your future like?
What's my future like? I'm thinking about working. That's a big step, but I've attended every time I want to.
Yeah.
But for me right now, the big thing is I want to become a member of the church over here. You know what I mean? I used to walk these streets, and like at night, like I would pray to God, please give me a house. I see all these rich people walking in houses. Why can't I have a house?
Yeah.
And He puts me in a house that from my bed I can see the church across the road. How do I not go there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I go every day. I'd be ignorant not to, because I appreciate what I have. Every time I get in the shower, every time I open my fridge, I'm so grateful that I can't even explain it in words.
Yeah.
I really can't, And I just hope, I wish I could help somebody else get that, because that's what I really would like.
Well, you that could be in your future.
Oh, I
Look
know
what
that.
happened to me.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I didn't plan any of this.
No, of course not. I know that. I know that. The one thing you learn out there is just to be patient, though. You can't rush nothing. You know what I mean? It didn't happen overnight. It's not going to unhappen overnight.
Well, for me, and I'll spin this a little bit, since you're a person of faith, I've never been closer to a destiny, right? Because look at
Very much so.
being able to connect with you. We're going to go get you some blinds. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, they didn't put curtains on this thing, and we got to get you some clothes.
Yeah.
So we're headed off to a thrift store, and then Target, or maybe we'll mail order something for the blinds, depending on
Figure
what
it
they
out.
at. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So, but none of that would have ever happened if I wasn't homeless,
Right.
and then got me on a path
Yeah.
to where I'm helping empower people to share their own stories
Yeah.
in their own voice.
That's the greatest thing in the world, is just letting people see it, because so many people don't even know it even exists.
Yeah.
Or they really don't. They really understand how it works, or the deeper, currents of it,
Yeah.
And once people know, then they can try to change it.
Yeah.
It takes awareness to make the change,
If you had 3 wishes, what would they be? you've had years to think
Yeah,
about this
I
since
really-
the last interview.
That's a hard one. I really only have one. I don't want anybody to ever have to go through what we went through.
Yeah.
You know, we came here with her dad, and it was terrible. Like, you know, like we lost her dad. You had to go stay in a convalescent shelter and stuff because it's so screwed up.
Yeah.
You know, and that was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I would never want anybody to have to experience that. That'd be my wish.
Yeah. Well, that's a great wish.
Thank you.
And what I was laughing because you guys were talking about how you watch Invisible People videos now, so you should have been ready for that 3 wish crowd.
Yeah, right now, right?
So let's go get you guys some clothes.
Thank you,
Well, thank you very much for talking to me.
without a doubt.